And welcome on back to another edition of Auburn Anonymous. I am your host, Miles Espy. You can find me on X at Ashton Daniels AA. I'm here today with my co-host and recruiting expert, Mr. Jackson Arnold AA, also known as Michael Espy. Michael, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening?
Man, I'm good. I've been hearing a lot of people on Twitter message me and also tweet at me that I have been very active since the Final Four, and that's true. It's nothing that I'm just. It's not that I'm upset with how the results of that went. It's just if this is kind of a rest period for me. As you know, I work hard getting intel and doing all the recruiting and transfer portal stuff that I do. And we're kind of at a period in the basketball transfer portal where it's starting to die down a little bit. Most guys have already selected a team. Football recruiting is starting to pick up a little bit, but just to be completely honest, it's just hard to really focus on football recruiting like I have in the past. And that's just because it seems like over maybe 70% of the guys that commit to these schools are going to end up committing to another school, and there's about a 90% chance they're going to transfer. And so it's almost like you never see someone just commit to one school, go to the school, stay at it all 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. And so it's honestly kind of made me not as interested in the recruiting aspect, and I'm very interested in the transfer portal aspect of it. There is a huge football commit that I believe we're going to get, and I'll make a prediction at the end of the episode. But yeah, I like keeping up with the top football recruits, but maybe when it gets closer to signing day, I'll have more intel and more interest in it. But I'm just excited for this season to get started. I know we're about 3 months out from football season, but it'll be here before you know it. We'll be watching Auburn baseball. But I started watching Auburn baseball really just to keep me happy in the meantime until football starts. How about you?
Man, I'm pretty good. Football, of course, we look pretty good in 8A. But, you never really know anything from those. Baseball has been awesome, though. I mean, we came off of last year where we weren't looking all that. We lost a bunch of games. Lost a bunch of games last year, but they were all close. And this year, we're a top 10 team now. We had 2 bad series in the SEC where we lost to Texas, and we got swept by Texas and swept by Georgia, both of which are top 5 baseball teams. And we were respectable in both of those series. Of course, you want to do better, but then other than that, we've been awesome. We've won every other series. I mean, we just came off a series at Tennessee. They're a top 10 team. We won 2 of the 3 games. I think that really stood out to me there was, I'm going to take it back another week, the Mississippi State weekend. The first game of it was raining real bad, and they were debating on whether or not they could play the game. And they decided to push the game to the very next day because both the teams wanted their ace pitchers to make it through the full game. Well, fast forward a week later, and Auburn's playing Tennessee. Same kind of deal. First night, weather's pretty bad, and Tennessee, Tony Vitello, their coach, pushed to have that game played Friday night. And there were rumblings that it was because he wanted Auburn's ace pitcher Dutton, for them to play the first couple innings, the game get pushed to the next day, and Auburn's burned their ace. Well, it kind of backfired because they played they played the top of the first. Tennessee burned their ace, then they pushed the game to the next day, and next thing you know, Auburn's got their star pitcher for the full first game, and Tennessee burned theirs after half an inning. So, not Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl is the best coach in Auburn basketball history, but Butch Thompson also starts with a B. Best Auburn baseball coach probably in Auburn history, with a masterclass move that Tony Vitello could only dream of matching there for the baseball side. But I'm very much looking forward to the SEC baseball tournament. We've clinched our spot in that, and it looks like we're going to definitely be hosting a regional and hopefully a super regional too.
I mean, the Tennessee baseball series honestly kind of reminded me of the Auburn basketball series we had with them. Yeah, we're clearly a better team. We're clearly going to end the season with a better result. But yeah, you did beat us one time in your home state.
I think that's very well summed. In baseball, I believe we play South Carolina this weekend. Is that right?
Yes, in South Carolina. as you probably know, is not the typical South Carolina team we've seen over the past few years. I believe they've only won 5 conference games. I could be wrong. I know they're second to last in the conference. So, yeah, I think Auburn, as long as they win the series, I know we're really pushing for a super regional right now. I would say we almost have a regional locked up. But it would be nice to be in the top 8 so we could have a super regional so me and you are able to go down there and cover that game with our media passes.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. We've made it
Yeah.
a bunch of games with our media passes, and we expect to keep doing that in the future. It'll be a real good time. Um, yeah. Do you have anything? We're gonna pivot on over to basketball. Do you have any new transfer portal news? I know Auburn's pretty much wrapped up the roster. I think they might add a big man or two more, but I think other than that, the roster's complete. Do you have any information on any of the players who have currently signed, or any intel on the people who we might add?
Yeah, so we currently sit at 9 scholarship players plus Tahad Pettiford. And if you look at that rotation of just those 10 guys, that looks like a pretty solid team. That looks like a team alone, in my opinion, that could finish top 5 in the SEC. I don't know if you know this. This JUCO center we got has a 7'9" wingspan.
Yeah.
He's only played organized basketball for 1 year. Obviously, he's from Africa.
A Poro?
Yeah, Aporum. He's only played organized basketball for 1 year. And so he's clearly got the God-given talent. He reminds me of, what's that guy? Joseph Tugler from Houston.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to expect much offense out of him, but he was the defensive player of year in his conference. And I know some people are worried he might not be able to contribute right away, but I guarantee you we can use his defense. Even if he's just like the next Dylan Cardwell, I think we'll see him contribute next year. That being said, he has only played organized basketball for 1 year, and so Bruce Pearl has not necessarily doesn't he wants to add another big man just in case this is a flop. That's the honest way to put it. And so we obviously have Keyshawn Murphy from Mississippi State, but he's another guy. He's not a huge guy. He's a guy kind of like Broome. I think will play at the 4 and the 5.
Yeah.
Maybe start him off at the 4 and then move him to the 5. He's got to develop a better jump shot.
Could be a good stretch 5. If we want 5 guys on the floor who can shoot a little bit, if he develops a little bit of a shot, maybe. I don't know. You can go ahead.
Yeah, but James Scott from Louisville was here this weekend. He averaged like 8 points a game last year for them. 6'11", 240 guy. Another guy who could, kind of play a Cardwell role. Maybe a little bit better offensively, not as great defensively. He was a freshman at Charleston and followed his coach over to Louisville for his sophomore year last year. Got a lot better, playing against better competition. Would be a guy that I'd be okay with taking him as a backup. To be completely honest, I don't think he would be a starter for us. He might, if he improved, he might be able to play that Dylan Cardwell role that I expect someone to fulfill with the way this roster is looking. But he's the type of guy he visited, and not a lot of people are going to report this, but I'm just going to say it. He's ours if we want him. I think we're still reviewing. I personally think we're still reviewing the other options out there, like we have in the past. I don't feel like our coaching staff feels like they're necessarily in a rush to fill the spot with the roster we already have. And so, Vin Allen Lubin is another guy. I'm not going to say we're going to get him, but he's a potential guy that I could see us targeting. We have spoken with him.
And what team is he with?
He was on North Carolina last year. He was a starting center.
Oh, shoot. I know him, yep.
Yeah,
Sorry.
transferred from Vanderbilt. Vin Allen Lubin could be a solid player. He's asking for more money, though, and it's just like, we need a big man, but we don't need a star big man. And at the end of the day, this is like a pro sports league, and it's all about the money we have left and who's worth it to pay what.
Yeah.
And then I expect some other guys' names to maybe pop up. Again, I think they're being patient there, but I 100% expect us to add another solid big man. Ira Bowman's son has come in on scholarship. They plan on redshirting him next year. He's not like a big. This guy isn't like a three-star recruit.
I kind of feel like my take on him is it kind of appears like he's going to be the AD Scott of the roster.
Exactly. And if he ends up developing into something great, that's awesome. But I'm pretty sure we have 15 scholarships now. College basketball has moved to that, so we have scholarships to give. But lastly, all I've got to say is, I'm not gonna lie. The one thing that scares me about next year's roster is Todd Pettiford, and he is a very good player. And I am starting to get worried that the NBA Combine's coming up, and we both know how good Todd Pettiford is,
For sure.
and I just wouldn't be surprised if someone guaranteed him a contract. I heard him say in an interview, if he gets a guaranteed contract, he's gonna go. But if he's not guaranteed, that probably means top 20 picks. He's going to come back to Auburn. He's right at that line. I personally think he's easily a top 20 pick. The only thing that holds him back is his height. I'm hoping, praying to God, he measures in at 5'11" at the NBA Combine.
Maybe even 5'10".
Yeah, and sorry, Todd Pettiford. I love you, but I hope you play absolutely awful at the Combine. We need you back next year, because if he doesn't come back next year, we're going to have a lot of NIL money, and I expect us to go poach a point guard, and I'm not going to bring that. I have a name in mind who I think we would go out and get, but I'll just say it. I think Josh Hubbard would be a guy that we'd potentially go and poach. I'm not saying any tampering or I've heard anything like that, but if Todd Pettiford is to declare for the draft, watch for Josh Hubbard out of Mississippi State.
Yeah, well, definitely keep an eye out for that as a potential name, and I'd love to have him in orange and blue. He's a fantastic point guard. He could follow his good buddy and teammate Keyshawn Murphy right on over to the plains and play in the jungle. I'd love it. Okay, so next up, we're going to pivot on over to football. I know you've talked about it a little bit. Do you have any other football news you want to bring up? And then if not, we can kind of dig right into the heart, right in the meat and potatoes of this podcast episode.
Nothing really. I mean, we've added a few guys in the transfer portal. I think this is great news that we didn't really add anyone that great, to be honest with you, in the spring portal, because the coaches feel confident in the roster we already have. And I really don't see too many holes on this roster. And I'm sorry if any of the guys who committed in the spring portal are currently watching this, but I don't expect any of them to be starters. I hope I'm wrong. Hoping one of them ends up being pretty good. But I think those are mostly depth pickups. I think that shows how confident this staff is in the roster right now. And, I think the biggest news of the portal was honestly Jaden Ott going to Oklahoma, other than Nico, because, that makes that game a little bit harder when we go play Oklahoma. They don't have very many weapons, and they're trying to revamp that offensive line, but that was a great pickup for Oklahoma. I think that helps them get another win or two. But, man, the portal's pretty much over, and it's almost like we're just waiting for the season to start now.
Yeah, I cannot wait. Cannot wait at all. So that's going to get us into the meat and potatoes of this episode. I gave you homework. We gave each other homework. We made a rankings. It's kind of dead period, so we're kind of having fun doing some lists, that kind of thing. And we plan on doing a lot more lists building up to the college football season. But the list we did this time is ranking the SEC head football coaches 1 through 16. If you and I were to start Auburn Anonymous University, what coach number 1 through 16 out of the current SEC coaches would we want leading that program? I held up my end of the bargain. I did the homework. Did you do your homework?
I did. I'm not gonna lie. I put the list on my phone, and I'm using but I'm using this flashlight as my lighting right now. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna go about this. You gotta give me a second to adjust. But yes, I do have my list, and I'm actually pretty confident in it.
Yeah, me too. I'll say this, and that's all good. When I was making this list, the top was easy. The first 1 through 5 was easy. And the bottom, 13 through 16 were easy for me. But then, 6 through 12, or 6 through 11, it was hard. There were so many, you could make a case for my number 11 being my number 6, and so forth and so forth. So do you want me to start with number 16, or do you want to go for it first?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You kick us off.
Yeah, I'll kick us off at number 16. This is perhaps the easiest one. Between this and number 1 were the two easiest ones to do. There's a worse coach in the SEC, and it's really not even close. And that man is Clark Lee, the coach at Vanderbilt. Look, people might gas him up because he went 7-6 last year at Vanderbilt, and sure, that's pretty good. But what else has he done? He's got a career record of 16-33 at Vanderbilt. He had one year where he made the Birmingham Bowl. Let's not. What I'm not going to do is sit here and act like he's an elite SEC coach. If I was starting a SEC program or any college football program of the SEC coaches, he's the one I wouldn't want touching it with a 10-foot pole. What about you?
I'm right there with you, man. I had Clark Lee at 16. I'm kind of like you. I thought about this past season, and I was like, wow, maybe he should be like 12, 13 with the roster he had. But I think we're going to see a lot more schools kind of like Florida State this year in this transfer portal era that, look good one year and then just completely terrible the next. Mm-hmm. And vice versa. And Vanderbilt's one of those teams. I don't see them winning more than 3 or 4 games next year. I really don't think he's going to be the coach at Vanderbilt after maybe he might make it 2 more years max. But yeah, man, this guy just isn't cut out for the SEC, and it's not really anything against him though. It's also like it's hard to get anyone to take that Vanderbilt job. It's the hardest job in the country.
Yeah, there's no question. And I want to preface the list, even though we've started. All these coaches are good football coaches. To make it as a head coach in the SEC, you're a good coach. But Clark Lee, I mean, it's not even close. He's the worst. Now, also, again, I want to reiterate as well as I go over my number 15 coach. I'm not going with the 15th, I guess, necessarily worst overall coach or who has the 15th worst track record or whatever. I'm going, if I started a team, who would I not want to be the coach? And at number 15, I have Mark Stoops of Kentucky. I mean, a guy who's really, at times, overachieved at Kentucky. He had them as the second best team in the SEC East for a pretty good stretch of a few years there, albeit a very distant second best team. But just a really kind of a boring coach, hadn't had a lot of energy, and I see the flames have really started to, dry out over at Kentucky. I mean, last year, losing record. I mean, they lost to Auburn at home last year. I mean, that says a lot. A team that's going in the wrong direction, that's a guy I wouldn't want running my program. What about you at number 15?
15, I had someone I expect you won't have very high on your list as well. I got Sam Pittman. I mean, listen, man, you're at Arkansas, and Arkansas is kind of looked at as like a Mississippi State or Vanderbilt. Arkansas has all the money in the world to go compete with anyone. You see it in basketball. They put up one of the most expensive rosters in the country. This guy just can't recruit at all. If this was not the NIL era, he would have already been fired. Yeah, he got lucky last year and got 8 wins. Kind of got a fluke win versus Auburn, a couple other fluke wins. This guy will not. I would 100% guarantee you this time next year he's not the coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, and just not a good coach.
Yeah, he's not very high on my list. Moving up to number 14, the 14th best coach in the SEC, in my opinion, actually is Sam Pittman. I really wanted to put him higher. I really want Arkansas to do well. Really, for one of our followers, and we follow him, of course, at Aussie Maverick. I'm a big fan. Auburn Anonymous fully endorses his Twitter feed. He's great the way he trolls Tennessee. I want Arkansas to succeed, really just for his happiness. I love him so much. I love his Twitter account so much. But unfortunately, Sam Fatman Pittman just isn't cutting it out for Arkansas. And I think Ozzie will be happy to know that next year Sam Pittman's not going to be their head football coach. They'll have someone better, I believe. But again, a guy, Sam Pittman, who he came in and he, for a couple years there, kind of had Arkansas turned around. I mean, that was a really tough gig when he took it over. But kind of like Mark Stoops, except a little quicker than Mark Stoops, feels like those flames are starting to die out a little bit.
Yeah, if you're not following Aussie Maverick on Twitter, you just don't like entertainment. He's the most interesting follow, and I use the adjective interesting. Most interesting follow on SEC Twitter right now. You don't ever know what you're going to get out of this guy. And he basically just, live streams his life. So interesting guy to watch. But at 14 for me, I got Billy Napier. He's got the Florida Gators thinking 7 wins is a good thing. Like, I grew up, Florida Gators were winning national championships, consistently beating Georgia, consistently in the national playoff championship. And, 7 wins was a miracle, this win for them. And they had the number one quarterback in the country at a high school, and they also had another quarterback who got drafted. Their roster is completely stacked. It's honestly a nightmare situation at Florida because you have all the NIL in the world, so you're basically buying your roster, but you have a nightmare of a head coach who can't seem to win the big games, and he's got a tough schedule again this year. Another guy who I can almost guarantee you will get fired by the end of the season.
Interesting. We're very different on that wavelength. Very interesting. Okay. Well, that's cool. That's why I'm glad we didn't share our list beforehand, so we can kind of go as we go through. We see everyone's numbers. Number 13, as a guy who I suspect you don't have too much higher on this list. Heck, you might have him at 13. I don't know. I have Brent Venables at Oklahoma. Look, I think he has a pretty decent track record as a defensive coordinator. He had 1 year at Oklahoma where I think they went 10-2. Albeit that was when he was in the Big 12 his second year. I felt like he was dealt a really tough hand last year with all those wide receivers getting injured and, all the injuries. I mean, he dealt with more than most coaches ever had to deal with in a given year. And so he dealt with a lot. But he's very unpopular in Oklahoma. If they don't have a huge turnaround this season, which I don't think they will, I think they're kind of overrating John Mateer. He's in big trouble. And I think he very well could be. I think he's going to get fired, at least by the end of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that take. I don't have him much higher, but at 13 for me, I have Jeff Lebby. Wait, are we on 14 or 13?
We're on 13.
Yeah, 13. Jeff Lebby. Sorry. So at 13, I have Jeff Lebby. In this NIL era, I just feel bad for anyone who wants to take the Mississippi State or Vanderbilt head coaching job because it just made it even harder for them because they just don't have the money that the other SEC schools have. I think, as we said earlier, all the SEC coaches are good coaches. I think Jeff Lebby possibly has a future as a head coach. He just hasn't proven anything to me as a head coach. He's been a pretty good offensive coordinator before, but I think he needs to go to a big-time school and go be an offensive coordinator and, have some success there until he can find a better job. But just with the other coaches in the SEC, I hate to have him this low, but I just don't think he's quite qualified to be any higher than 13.
Well, I think he's qualified to be better than 13. I think he's qualified to be number 12, where I have him on my list. I felt like it was even a little high putting him there. But again, the list isn't what have you accomplished, because if that was the case, he's probably number 16. What have you accomplished as a head coach? But I see upside with him, which is why I put him at 12. I think about those offenses he had humming at Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Like, that guy knows offense. And maybe, it just doesn't work out as a head coach, and he's a great offensive mind. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. It's still too early to tell. But if you're asking me if I'm starting a program, would I rather take a shot on someone like Jeff Lebby, who I've seen have incredible offenses in the past, hasn't proven it as a head coach yet, but I've seen greatness in his offenses. Or go with someone like Sam Pittman, who, okay, maybe he's a little more proven as a head coach, but I think we've kind of seen his ceiling, but I don't think we've seen Jeff Lebby's ceiling yet. Higher risk, high reward, kind of a get. That's why I have him higher than some of those guys like Brent Venables, Sam Pittman, Mark Stoops. But at the end of the day, he hadn't proven anything as a head coach, so I couldn't put him too high on the list.
Yeah, Venables for me was number 12. So we had our 12 and 13 switched out. And I think, honestly, they're both kind of similar in their own aspects. Both of them are outstanding coordinators, but aren't quite head coach material. Venables knows nothing about offense. Just isn't great at putting together a team. I think right now he has a lot. This year he's kind of sitting back and let a lot of people do things for him. I mean, I know he had nothing to do with the John Mateer or Jaden Ott pickups. Believe me, those guys did not go to Oklahoma to play for Venables. He's got to have a very good season just to be the head coach at Oklahoma still. I'm glad Auburn didn't take him, that we ended up with Hugh Freeze. Venables, you're all right, man, but you're a defensive coordinator, and I do respect you as that, but not as a head coach.
Yeah, and thank you for turning down the Auburn job. You made us both very happy guys for that. Alrighty, next up on the list, I'm sorry I lost it here for a second. Okay, perfect. Okay, again, kind of tough to rank some of these newer coaches. One of them I have right here. He's fine. Mike Elko is who I have at 11. He did a really good job reviving Duke, and that's a huge positive. And then he did really good to start off with A&M. He won all the games he was supposed to win. In his first year, he couldn't win any of the ones that were kind of tougher, including the Auburn game. I feel like we're the kind of the team that, they were coming into Auburn last year. They had a real chance of making the SEC championship game, and we kind of crushed those hopes, if I remember correctly. And then they went and lost to Texas. I think he's fine. Like he could turn out to be great. He has a lot of NIL resources, and again, he turned around Duke. I mean, he had Duke doing really well, but I just think that there's a whole lot more firepower looking at these other SEC coaches, and so I had him at 11. I think he's a fine coach. What about you?
At 11, I have just a little bit higher than you. I have Mark Stoops. He's one of these guys that just I don't think he's made for the NIL era of college football. He's an older guy. If you look at last year and this upcoming season, they're both very disappointing. But he has overperformed with less talent in the past, which is why I kept him on this list. He's developed quarterbacks like Will Levis. I want to forget who else played for him. He's had a couple other guys get drafted a little bit higher than they were supposed to. Were competing they were close to winning the SEC East a couple of years. They were just Georgia went away from doing so. I think Kentucky's one of the tougher jobs to have in the SEC just because they don't care about their football program there. I think he would have success if he was somewhere like Boston College, Louisville, but Kentucky's just not the kind of job for him. But yeah, I think now that I've done this list, 11 through 16 is pretty clear, and top 10 is where you start seeing some improvement.
Yeah, I don't disagree. To me, it was around 11.
Yeah.
Where Elko, because I was like Elko, and of course you haven't said Elko yet. And of course I haven't said Napier yet. So a couple of differences, but I agree. To me, the bottom was easy, and the top few were easy. Number 10, the 10th best coach in the SEC to me is Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Look, again, as I said about Elko in the last one, I think he's a solid option. I think DeBoer's a solid option. He's been a winner wherever he's been, and that's the upside. I mean, he's done nothing but win wherever he's been. On the downside, you took a team full of Nick Saban's players, and went 9-4, which is a good record, but let's not sit here and act like that's the standard that Nick Saban set at Alabama. And then the big con for me is he just doesn't have the ties to the SEC to go out and help in recruiting. Now, NIL will kind of help make up for that to a degree, but I still think that that's kind of points against him. And if I'm starting a program down in the South, I'd want someone with a little bit more and better connections than him. Who do you got at number 10?
This might shock you, but 10 I also have Kalen DeBoer. I think, yes, he made it to a national championship game. Gene Chizik won a national championship. Jimbo Fisher won a national championship. Just because you win a national championship or even go to the national championship game one time doesn't mean you're a good head coach. You look at the roster he had, Michael Penix, Rome Odunze, Jacoby Polk. They had another NFL receiver. I can't blast out Washington receivers off the rip. I'm sorry. They had like 3 guys on an NFL that are in the NFL now that were like first and second round picks last year. Kalen DeBoer, you got lucky, man. You lucked out on some of the guys you picked up in the portal, and that's just not going to continue to happen every single year. You had the best roster in college football this past season, and you lost 4 games. One of those being to Jackson Arnold and Vanderbilt. Alabama lost a football game to Vanderbilt. This is something that would never happen during the Nick Saban era. Yes, I'm putting him. I really think he should be lower, but I'm putting him at 10 just because he did make it to that national championship game at Washington. But yeah, man, he won at the D3 level. He was okay at Fresno State. He was good at Washington. This man just can't seem to make any relationships with his players. He can't recruit. The staff doesn't seem to like him. I hope I'm wrong. I want to see Auburn and Alabama to continue to have a competitive rivalry. But yeah, I just think Kalen DeBoer, another one of those guys. I wouldn't be shocked if he's gone after this season.
I'm with you. If they do worse than this past season, he'll be out the window, and I could certainly see that happening with their quarterback situation they got going on. All right, moving on up to number 9. You might have some disagreement with me here. I struggle with this part of the list, but I got Billy Napier just ahead, just a little bit better than Kalen DeBoer is Billy Napier. So Billy, I would have had much lower on the list last year, but after last year, I mean, put ourselves in the position we were looking at last year. We're thinking that this guy is on the way out. I mean, he's got a roster that's fine, but he's got an impossible schedule. He's got a okay roster, but he's got an impossible schedule. And this guy goes and he wins some tough games, wins some games that he wasn't supposed to win. Now, again, the team wasn't great. They did end up losing some late and not being great, but he's got DJ. He was, despite it as poorly as they were looked on paper, they were able to be bowl eligible. They convinced DJ Lagway to hang around, and for that, I put him in. I thought he deserved to be in the middle of the pack. I know you can disagree with me, and that's okay. And you can go to your number 9 as well.
Yeah, completely disagree. The fact that winning 7 wins at Florida is considered a good season is absolutely insane to me. But to each their own here. At number 9, I have Mike Elko. Really kind of one of the guys that had the most trouble knowing where to put him on this list. He has potential to be higher and potential to be lower, obviously. But I think he'll stay around the middle of the pack. I think Texas A&M is one of those schools that's gonna have money for you, so he's gonna continue to have a good roster each season. He just doesn't seem to have much of a personality of a guy who's able to recruit. But he's got that Texas A&M money, and the start of last season, it was looking like they were going to be in the SEC championship game. They kind of crashed at the end there. He made a gutsy call, moving Marcel Reed at the starting quarterback. I think they're going to have a similar season to last year. I see them going 8-4, 9-3. So it's hard to have a coach that goes 8-4, 9-3 in the SEC back-to-back years. It's hard to have him in the lower half of the SEC because that's hard to do. So I threw him in the middle of the pack, but I could be completely wrong on this one. I had trouble with this one, to be honest.
Yeah, I got you. I had a hard time justifying putting him above DeBoer. So in my mind, that's why I put him afterwards. But I certainly get where you're coming from. And as we both said, this middle of the pack was the hardest part to rank. And this next guy I'm going to say, I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to be up on your list soon, right in the middle of the pack. Number 8, I have Beamer Ball, Shane Beamer over at South Carolina. This guy, to me, just fits perfectly right in the middle of the pack. I mean, the thing I love about him is the energy he brings. He was a shot of caffeine for that South Carolina football program, which had really kind of fallen off before him. He's just an energizer bunny. Now, is he an elite coach? Do I think he's Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, Hugh Freeze level? No, but he brings a lot of energy. He'd be great for helping to jumpstart, revitalize a program, and he's a pretty good recruiter. I mean, he's got Lenora Sanders and a whole host of good players at South Carolina right now. I think he fits right in there at number 8. I think he's doing a pretty solid job.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Also, Beamer at 8. Struggle with this one just because if I was, an SEC school with an opening, I would be excited if we hired Shane Beamer just because he's so young and he does have all that energy. Sometimes I question his actual ability to coach, and I mean he has, he's found a few guys over the past few years. I don't really know how much of a part that he played in it, like getting Lenora Sellers,
right,
who's an absolute stud. Who's probably going to be a first-round draft pick next year. Like, finding guys like that, I don't know if, he played a part in that. But he's young. He has a lot of energy. He has a lot of potential. I think he's going to be around in college football for a very long time. But, he just hasn't accomplished as much as the guys above him. And so, personally, if I was hiring for a coaching position, I would want the guy with more accomplishments. So I put him at 8, but I think he has potential to be higher or potential to just be a complete fraud, but I don't think he is.
Fair enough. It's kind of where I'm at on him as well. Exactly where I'm at. Number 7, a guy who I struggled to rank, but someone I really like. Like if we didn't have Hugh Freeze, I don't know. I love this coach and what he's done at his school, respectively. Is Eli Drinkowitz over at Missouri? I don't know. Like I feel like he's kind of a controversial figure. Some really don't like him. I really like him. I mean, he's taken Missouri. He had him kind of middle of the pack for several years, but it felt like there was one game every single year where he'd sneak up and get someone. Like Georgia, I mean, there was a time 3-4 years ago, I don't know exactly. Georgia was like, they were the be all end all college football team, amazing. And Missouri gave them the scare of their lives in Columbia. It felt like he did that once a year, and then all of a sudden, a couple years ago, they go and they make a New Year's Six Bowl with him, go and beat Ohio State. They did take a small step back this past year. I don't think Brady Cook was quite as good as maybe we thought, but they were still, I think, 8-4, something like that. Pretty good program, and I think Brady Cook was injured for a good chunk of the year as well. So that didn't do him any favors. But I think he's a good coach, brings a lot of energy. His players seem to love him. So I had Eli Drinkowitz at 7.
Yeah, I also had Drinkowitz at 7. I expect Missouri to have a down season this year, just because I don't really believe Bo Prabula is I don't even think he's a top 10 SEC quarterback. And I just think, I will say the thing I'll say about Drinkowitz is that he reminds me a lot of Lane Kiffin, except without the personality. I think him and Lane Kiffin have done the best job of adapting to the NIL portal area. I really like what he brought in throughout the transfer portal this offseason. Just not a fan of their quarterback position. I like his philosophy of he'd rather have experienced, proven guys over 5 stars who are ranked high but aren't proven. And so, he's been doing the transfer portal a little bit different. I think they may have even had the number 1 transfer portal class. And so, I could be wrong. I know it's top 3 at least, though. And so, I'm a Drinkwitz fan. I just, I can't have him any higher. He did win 10. I want to say he's won 10 wins 3 years in a row, which I think other than Georgia, I don't know if anyone else has done that. Maybe Ole Miss. But, I'll put him at 7. I just don't believe in this team this upcoming year. I think he could be higher, but we'll have to see how this Bo Prabula performs this year.
Look at us matching on our last 2 coaches. Let's see if we match on number 6. I think you might have this guy a little higher than me, but we'll see. Number 6, I have the one, the only, Brian Kelly over at LSU. Yeah, I mean, I feel like people like to hate on Brian Kelly, but when you dig into it, he's a pretty good coach. I mean, people like to say he, won a lot of those games at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame had an easy schedule. And sure, it was easier than an SEC schedule, but the schedule wasn't too easy for Notre Dame. I mean, they play a lot of the upper teams every year. Comes to LSU with a fake accent, kind of feels a little bit like a joke. The LSU defenses of Ed Orgeron are long gone. They're kind of an offense-first style, and that to me hurts Brian Kelly, that he's let the defense get so much worse under his reign. But the offense is humming, man. I mean, he has Jaden Daniels there. Now he has Garrett Nussmeier. Look, maybe LSU didn't make the playoff under him or anything, but, I mean, he's had them right there in the conversation, it feels like, last couple of years. He wins a lot of games. He has an over 70% win percentage at LSU. I mean, you got to have the guy pretty high on the list, whether or not he's popular or not, because the guy seems to win wherever he goes. So I got Brian Kelly at 6.
Yeah, this 3 through 6 for me was kind of hard. So number 6, I got Josh Heupel. I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum when most people, when talking about this Nico situation. Obviously, I know I'm going to talk about his career, but this Nico situation. That was so stupid. Like, Nico asked for $4 million. You give that man $4 million. I'm sorry. It sucks that that's the era we are in right now. But now you're completely screwed next season. You brought in Joey Aguilar out of Appalachian State who transferred to UCLA. This guy is probably the worst quarterback in the SEC. Tennessee, if they brought Nico back, they have a high chance to make the college football playoff again. for $2 million, I'm sorry, you just do it. It sucks. It sucks that we're in that position. But yeah, man, I don't. I think he kind of screwed their team over this year. I will say he's kind of like the perfect. What he did at Tennessee though was kind of like the perfect remodel. They just got better and better each year. I feel like they kind of peaked the season. I don't really expect them to ever be much better than they were this season with Josh Heupel as the coach, but he's a proven winner. Beat Alabama this year. He's been doing it back-to-back years at Tennessee, and yeah, I'm not a huge fan of his personality, to be honest with you. Apparently the players like him, but he just seems kind of dead to me. Yeah, I can't have him any higher than 6.
I agree with everything you said, and that's a segue into my next one, which is at number 5. I have Josh Heupel, and it feels a little too high. But like, I had him higher. Then I was like, you know what? I got to drop him a little bit due to this whole Nico situation. And I agree. It sucks that this is the era we're in. But no matter what your take on it, if you think Nico's kind of being stuck up, which I tend to think, I also think it's a horrible look for the program. It's a horrible look for Heupel. And you're 100% right on, they're screwed going into next season because they have a nice 5-star. I forget the guy's name. They have a 5-star they can play, or they brought in this Aguilar guy who seems all right, but also, you bring him into a pretty gimmicky offense that Heupel runs at quarterback. I feel like it's going to take time to learn that. Like, I don't think Joey Aguilar is going to be able to get it in time. So I think you need to be banking on that 5-star who they have already. But, Heupel, despite that, and despite that did make me lower him on the list, the turnaround job he's done at Tennessee can't go without, some praise. Look, I think at times we kind of forget how bad Tennessee was, or how mediocre, I shouldn't say bad, how mediocre they were for for a couple decades, it feels like, before he showed up. And he, turned them around. I believe his second year, I could be wrong, where he had Hendon Hooker, and they were ranked number 1 in the country. Now, they clearly weren't the best team that year. They were up there, but they weren't the best. But he's beaten Alabama twice at home, which is something Tennessee couldn't say for 16 years. Clearly, he's capable of turning a program around and putting a fun brand of football on the field. So, despite the embarrassment of what happened lately, he did make the top 5 for me.
Yeah, you put that in better words than I did, but that's pretty much exactly what I meant to say.
Yeah.
But number 5 for me, give me Hugh Freeze. I honestly think at the end of this season we'll have him higher on our list. Only thing putting him down is the first 2 years at Auburn. His biggest mistake of his coaching career was doubling down on Peyton Thorne, saying, "Hey, I believe in him. Let's bring him back." Peyton Thorne was just absolutely terrible, man. He's not even capable of making the UFL. Like, this guy's going to be selling insurance or maybe a football coach next season. He won't be playing professional football.
Or starting for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, man. Yeah, surely he's going to make that team. Yeah, in all seriousness, yeah. But the reason I have Hugh Freeze so high on this roster, you might be like, yeah, he just had 2 losing seasons. This guy, we're talking about who we would pick if we were coaches trying to rebuild our program. Hugh Freeze has proven it time after time for over 10 seasons now. He is the best recruiter in college football. If this guy was on Georgia, if this guy was at Texas, if he was at Texas, they would maybe have 10 5-star recruits. It is absolutely insane. You look at it, when he was at Ole Miss. Ole Miss was as bad as Vanderbilt, Mississippi State when he took over that program. He started getting 5-stars. He got number 1 players in the country, Robert Nkemdiche, to commit to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is what it is today because of Hugh Freeze. And yeah, man, he's just such a good recruiter. This Auburn roster is absolutely stacked next season. The only reason he's not in my top 3 is because I do have a little bit of questioning about his actual in-game coaching ability. I wish he put together a little bit of a better staff around him to help him with that. I love what he has on the defensive side of the ball. I'm just going to be completely honest. I'm not a huge believer in Derek Nix. He just hasn't been an offensive coordinator before. And I just don't know if he's the type of guy that you won't call in plays. But yeah, give me Hugh Freeze at 5. And I think he'll be higher on the list by the end of next season.
Yeah, I won't get too far into it, but for my number 4, I have Hugh Freeze. Because it's a lot of the same reasons you just said. If you're ranking based off of success in the SEC. He's not going to be at number 4. He's not going to be at the bottom. He's probably middle of the pack. But last year certainly a disappointment. But Auburn was down bad when he came in. I mean, the mess that Harsin left us in and the way he's been able to recruit at the top. Granted, NIL has helped a lot, but also you got to be able to sell a vision to players that you can build a championship team at that school with them having a role in it and give them a chance to make it in the NFL. And Hugh Freeze has sold that successfully sold that to the best recruits out there. So, doing a fantastic job there, and the results need to follow. I suspect they will.
Yeah, and I'm not going to speak too much on number 4 just because of what you said, but number 4 I have Brian Kelly. I think he's proven to succeed in the SEC so far. He's had a Heisman Trophy winner. What he did with Jaden Daniels was absolutely insane. That guy was a no one at Arizona State, comes to LSU, wins the Heisman Trophy, and now one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You see what he did with Malik Neighbors. You see what he did with Brian Thomas. If you want to play in the NFL, Brian Kelly is the guy. He did it at Notre Dame as well. Hasn't ever won a national championship, and quite frankly, hasn't ever been in the national championship game. So I guess you could say he hasn't really been close. But I mean, this guy gets 9-10 wins almost every season. As I've made no secret, LSU's my pick to win the SEC this year. I really like what he did with the roster over the offseason, and I also like how he's approaching the NIL era. I know a lot of people are talking bad about Brian Kelly, but I think he's at LSU to stay until he retires.
Yeah, no, I think he's very good. I know we're both high on LSU this year, but I think you're a little higher than myself. I have a sneaking suspicion 1 through 3 for you and I is going to match. But I'm going to go at number 3, Lane Kiffin. Excuse me. I know we like to joke on him because Hugh Freeze seems to stuff him in lockers all the time in the transfer portal. But, I mean, what Lane Kiffin's done at Ole Miss is nothing short of spectacular. I mean, he's taken Ole Miss, which historically has been at the bottom half of the SEC, and he has them where they're consistently in the top half, fighting for an SEC championship. Now, they never seem to be able to quite make it under him, but they're right there in the conversation every single year. Done a fantastic job. I mean, he's had I mentioned earlier that Brian Kelly had over 70% winning percentage at LSU. Lane Kiffin's also had an over 70% winning percentage at Ole Miss. And to me, that's even more impressive because, LSU's this more traditional powerhouse. Ole Miss isn't. So, yeah, I mean, that can't be understated how great he's done. Lane Kiffin, you get number 3.
Yeah, I'll just do the last 3 different way. I had Lane Kiffin at 2. I think he has potential to be the number 1 on this list. If he was at Georgia, if he was at Texas, I mean, even if he's at Ole Miss, though, just doesn't have the money like some of these other schools to put together the same type of roster each and every year. The only thing that prevents him from being number 1 is that they call him Lane Whiffen for a reason. He just isn't able ever to win the big game. And I just think at the end of the day, a lot of that time, it's because he doesn't have the roster. This past year, he did have the roster and still wasn't able to do it. I think if he's able to have that kind of roster every year, he'll eventually poke through. I think Lane Kiffin's probably the future best football coach in college football because he's a younger guy. Like in 10 years from now, I think Lane Kiffin might be the best coach in college football. Could be in the NFL even. But yeah, give me Kiffin at 2.
Okay, and I thought about putting him at 2. I think the argument's really there. But at my number 2, who you're going to have at your number 3, I'm sure, is Steve Sarkisian. Both of them have the similarity of being rehabilitated by Nick Saban. And at first, I was leaning Lane Kiffin over Sarkisian because I feel like, Kiffin's got a little bit more of a personality, maybe more of an energy booster. But I think about sometimes the antics with him go a little too far. The Joey Freshwater stuff at Alabama, that's not something I want representing my team. So that's what gave Sark the slight edge to me. Sark has, done an amazing job at Texas so far. He's turned them to a program that, is kind of laughed at. Like, when's Texas finally going to be back? Well, they're back now. Made the playoffs this past year. He built them up. And you could say, sure, it helps that Arch Manning went there, but also he had Quinn Ewers there before that. He's building something really strong there. And in their first year in the SEC, which is a tough adjustment going from the Big 12 to SEC, he loses the SEC championship game in a fantastic game against Georgia, and then turns around and makes a little noise in the college football playoff. So to me that gave Sark the slight edge to Kiffin. Of course, he's doing a great job at Texas. I'll let you take over.
Exactly. I mean, I don't have much to add to that other than, Sark does have Texas, who has the most amount of money of any team in college football. So he's able to put together a better roster than anyone. Like, I wonder how good he would do if he was at Maryland, Would he still be this great coach? And I still think he would be a good coach, to be completely honest with you. I think he'd be like a 9-3 kind of guy at Maryland. I think he's a great offensive mind, great play caller. But yeah, you can't put him above Kirby Smart, who we both obviously have at 1. I think if transfer portal didn't happen, Kirby Smart was on the path to be the next Nick Saban. Won 2 straight national championships, and then this transfer portal and NIL started popping up, and now it's just easier for other teams to get the same kind of roster. But this guy was absolutely killing it in recruiting before the NIL. He still is killing it, but he was killing it even more before the portal and NIL started popping up, and now no one wants to be a backup on his team. I mean, he had so much depth, and anyone who was going to be second string transferred. So yeah, I just don't think we'll see as much dominance from Georgia anymore, even though they're going to be a solid team each and every year. But yeah, he's a clear number 1, two-time national championship winner, what he did at Alabama as a defensive coordinator, and he's probably going to win another one if we're being honest.
Yeah, it really wasn't hard. Kirby Smart, for my number 1, and Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football, not just the SEC. I agree. Now, I thought a couple years ago that gap was going to be way wider. I thought that he was the next coming of Nick Saban. Turns out that's not the case. He's not that good. He's not Nick Saban level good, but he's still very good. The best coach in college football. I hadn't really thought about it in the way you described it. The transfer portal, that probably hadn't been his best friend. But, whenever you play Georgia every single year, you're going to play probably the best defense in college football since he's been there, with the exception of his first year. And defense wins championships, and the offense has always been just good enough. I do, for this upcoming football season, I question their quarterback play. But what I don't question is Kirby Smart's coaching ability, his ability to scheme and put his team in the best position to win. Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football. We agree there.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this out there. One coach to watch out for this upcoming offseason, I think Kenny Dillingham. I know 2 years ago he was the youngest college football coach in all of D1. I don't think Arizona State is going to be able to maintain him for much longer just because there's other SEC schools, Big Ten schools who have more money for him. That can offer him a bigger contract, and that can give him more to spend with. And so he's a guy to watch out for. I think he might end up back in the SEC when the right job comes up, when the right big-time school needs a head coach this offseason.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, before we leave, I do want to run one other thing past you, okay? A very, very controversial thing got posted yesterday by the Auburn football account, which is the 2025 Fan Color Guide. Have you seen this yet?
I sure have, and I have an opinion on it.
Okay, so do I. Glad to hear it. So I'm going to run this by you and for our listeners. What to wear for the Auburn home games this season. So first off, Ball State fan choice. Secondly, the South Alabama football game, we wear white. Third, the Georgia football game, we wear orange. Fourth, for the Missouri game, the Power Stripe game. And then we play Kentucky, wear navy. Then Mercer, fan choice. Then Alabama, again, wear navy. If you look under this post, it's a bunch of Auburn fans complaining and whining about it, saying, don't tell us what to wear. But you know what? Before you give your opinion on it, I'm giving my opinion on it. To those Auburn fans, shut up, okay? It's awesome. This is one of the things that makes Auburn uniquely Auburn. When you watch football games and you see all the fans coordinating to either wear the same colors or stripe the fans or stripe the stands, it's awesome. It looks awesome. It's great. It makes for a great environment, makes for great TV. It's one of the things that, quite frankly, to me, makes Auburn uniquely Auburn, and I love it. So that's my take on it. What do you got to say?
I'm right there with you. I think I don't understand why everyone keeps complaining. Like, it does look cool. And number two, I will say, if we're going to keep doing this, we need to break out some orange jerseys. This isn't 1940 anymore. We don't have old alumni who are, oh, I want to see Auburn in their traditional blue jerseys. No one is saying that. I don't know where this comes from, and people think we have to stay in the blue jerseys. No one cares.
All right, Michael, one thing I heard you mention, and I want to re-ask you again. I heard you mention Auburn orange football jerseys. Anything
Yeah,
you
sure.
want to add there?
Yeah, I sure did. So yeah, I did mention Auburn potentially having orange jerseys this upcoming season. So as you know, our good buddy who's on the marketing department doesn't want me to say his name.
Sure.
He has told me a certain member of the Auburn coaching staff. I'm not allowed to say the name, but potentially the head coach of Auburn football is pushing for orange jerseys for the Auburn versus Georgia game this season. And it's looking like it's going to happen.
Wow.
I would say there's about an 85% chance Auburn's in orange jerseys for the Georgia game this season. I'm going to do a little bit more digging on this, so I'm not just putting it out as a fact. But yeah, for the first time in 30, 40 years, Auburn's going to be in orange jerseys.
Wow.
It's looking like it.
Now that is a prediction. If you got it right, people could stop making the allegations that you're just making stuff up.
Yep, and it's going to be the Georgia game too.
Okay. Specific game. I like it. I like the confidence. I like the boldness. Well, all right. Well, that's a great way to end the podcast this time around. We'll try to be back in maybe next couple of weeks, just with it being a little slower. We're taking a little more time off, but whenever football season starts getting ramped up, or if Auburn makes Omaha, we might have some more frequently. But for now, this is going to be it. I'm Ash Daniels, AA, and this is Jackson Arnold, AA. War Dam, we're out. AA knows.